So welcome to everyone. It's my real pleasure to welcome Rhian to deliver this MOE Digital Academy today. Rhian, I was the lead trainer on the MOE course that Rhian did. We've just been talking in 2017. And when you're a trainer on the MOE course, there are some people that just light a spark and are just a joy to be around. And Rhian was one of those people. She was an absolute pleasure, and she's been on a real journey over the past few years since completing the MOE course. So she is a MOE certified coach. She's also a trainer and facilitator for the National Autistic Society. And she was late diagnosed at 50 as being neurodivergent, which is a testament, she believes, to the missing or under diagnosis in the UK education system, particularly for women. So it's an absolute joy that she's coming with all her personal insight, with all the knowledge she's accrued over the past few years to deliver this session for us today. So welcome, Rhian. I'll hand over to you, and you let me know when you want me to put your slides up.
Okay, all right. Actually, you could put slide 1 up, which is my business card. Thank you. There we go. And if I could just take this opportunity to thank you very much, Mark, for that lovely introduction. And for the opportunity to basically talk and train you this evening. It's quite a privilege to work with the MOE Foundation, and a joy. So hello everybody, and you may want to make some notes throughout the training. So I recommend that you grab a pen and paper, or however you prefer to do your notes. I also like my notes, and as an autistic person, I tend to script. Therefore, as a reasonable adjustment, you might notice that I'm relying quite heavily on that script. So let's talk autism. The title of tonight's training session is How Can You Better Acknowledge Diversity Within Your Practice? So throughout this introduction, we are going to chunk everything down into 5 sections to make learning a little bit more achievable. So the first section is the pink section, and we will begin with familiarising and reinforcing some terminology in this section. Then we'll go straight into a thought-provoking activity where you might need your notebooks. Around differentiating communication styles. And the fast-paced activity here helps us realise how frustrating it can be to converse in a style that plunges us out of our usual comfort zone. And in this section, we'll also want to know a little bit about autism. The next section is the purple section, and here we will be asking, why is it important to respect autistic people's differences? Section 3 is the orange section, and this introduces us to the legal legislative protection for underrepresented groups in the UK and touches on our obligation to that legislative document. Next slide, please, Mark. In section 4, the blue section, we want to know about challenges that autistic people experience in mainstream environments, currently, today. And in the final and 5th green section, your notes may come in handy as we will be contemplating how to support autistic people at your own practice. Now we're going to appreciate your feedback, and the link to the MOE Foundation feedback will be in the chat Please do give us feedback. We highly value it. Additionally, if you want to pop your email and any question that you have into chat, I will aim to email you back directly and I will answer those next week. You can also email me directly at rhianhopkins@gmail.com with your feedback if you'd like to do that as well as a third option. So this is a 45-minute, that's it, course, and it has been created using autistic friendly strategies, frameworks, sectional color-coded slides, scripts, repetition, reinforcement, and visuals, to name a few. Cameras are not mandatory, though it is lovely for me to see you. I aim to encourage your diverse participation. Now, that includes not participating at all. So if anyone's not comfortable to participate, it really is not mandatory, okay? Nothing is forced. Everyone's point is valid, even if we don't agree with it. And I have included additional time for processing and questions at the end. I say it exactly as it is, authentically. Everything more or less relates to my own lived experience. Next slide, please. Now, the objective is to better understand your organisation's obligation to the neurodivergent community. You know, by today, organisations can adopt universally inclusive practices that benefit everyone, but without forcing individuals to have to disclose their specific diagnosis. Not everyone wants to do that, but lots of autistic people do say they benefit from the reasonable adjustments that are offered. So let's begin in section 1, the pink section. Mark, next slide. In this section, we're going to define some terminology: diversity, neurodivergent, neurotypical, and allyship are the important ones for me tonight. Next slide, please. Neuro relating to the brain and nervous system. Now, diversity describes the differences between people. So, for example, we are a diverse group here tonight, a diverse audience. We are all different. Neurodivergent relates to a person who identifies as having differences to the typical or mainstream approaches, and the word difference is important here, like autism. And neurotypical relates to people who don't relate to having these neurological differences. Allyship, people who champion or support the autistic community in employment, education, or socially. So now that we better understand some of the terms, let's move on to our first activity, where we will try to communicate in different ways. Now, many autistic people have language and communication differences, which can often leave them feeling misunderstood. Autistic people may talk over, interrupt, or withdraw from a conversation because they are trying to fit into a communication style and pace that doesn't suit them. And this activity might give you a sense of that frustration. The majority of people don't use visuals to converse. It's a different communication style. So we're going to do that now. Let's draw out a conversation. So with your notebooks, pen to paper, finger, your mind, whichever way suits you, I'd like you to draw a circle. Go ahead and do that. Let's draw a circle. Okay, everyone done that? Yep. Next, I'd like you to draw a square. In whichever way that suits you. Draw a circle, draw a square. And here we go. Next, can you draw out a white wine spritzer, please? With no written words. It's got to be white, with bubbles. Next, draw out a noisy bar. That's too loud. You need to be specific about the noise, but you can't use verbal words. Just draw the noise. Draw the bar. Now draw out that you don't like white wine. You prefer red, without the spritzer. And now draw out that you've changed your mind, and that actually you'd prefer a beer. Next, draw out that it's your turn to go to the bar, even though you don't want to go to the bar. And next, draw in that everyone is annoyed with you for not going to the bar and getting you round in. And next, draw out that you're feeling overwhelmed. Woo! And take a deep breath. The exercise is over. Did anyone find that easy? Did anyone find that difficult or frustrating? You can give me a thumbs up if you don't want to talk. So let's go first with the difficult or frustrating.
There's lots of people putting frustrating in the chat. Lots of people finding frustrating.
Great. Did anyone find it easy? Okay, we've got it. So I purposely did this exercise quickly because, conversations, they move fast. People are sometimes inflexible to adjust their speech to accommodate other styles of communicating, which means that autistic people may struggle with their processing and sensory differences. Now, some autistic people prefer writing or reading out words rather than speaking. Yet no one seems to care to accommodate this. Now, can you begin to imagine what it feels like for an autistic person to experience these inflexible external stressors? Busy, loud environments like a workplace or a cafeteria can be overwhelming. Then add in an oversensitivity to the smell of egg and fluorescent lighting. It's exhausting. Many autistic people avoid social interactions altogether because it's so uncomfortable. Now, not only is this isolating, but non-attendance is often frowned upon as antisocial or unprofessional. And the consequence for autistic people is often exclusion, negative labelling, no job offer, or even a sacking. Why? Could it be that society disapproves or fears differences? Could there be a lack of interest, care, or consideration towards anyone who is deemed different? Now, I don't think that understanding autism is optional anymore. It's essential. So, what is autism? Well, it's a neurological developmental difference to the typical way of experiencing the environment, to communicating or to interacting socially. It's a different way. The first published account was in 1925. In the 20th century, the psychiatrist Leo Kanner described the syndrome of childhood autism. The term Asperger's syndrome was officially dropped in 2013 and folded into the broader diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Now, notice here the word disorder replaces syndrome in 2013. The National Autistic Society 2025 state, to receive a diagnosis, autistic people must share differences from non-autistic people in how they think, feel, and communicate. there are over 205,000 people currently waiting for an assessment in the UK, and many autistic people choose not to seek a formal diagnosis at all, and some are completely missed, which means that this figure is potentially much higher. Emma Sanderson from Options Autism 2025 asks, will we soon be in a position where the neurodiverse become the neurotypical? The NHS recognise that autism has a strong genetic component, and the government and NHS committed in 2021 to change its current definition of autism in the Mental Health Act, because autism is not a mental disorder, as it's stated there. However, autistic people's mental health can of course be impacted negatively, just like anybody else. To be classed on a line from high to low functioning could be considered as dehumanising. Neurotypical people also vary in abilities, but we don't label their spectrum. Everyone has different traits and needs. In section 2, this is the purple section. We ask a question. Why is it important for mainstream society to respect autistic people's differences? Let's have another activity. So I'm going to give you about a minute to make a list of why you think it's important to respect autistic people's differences. Why should we even bother? Starting from now. I'll reinforce the question. Why is it important to respect autistic people's differences? Make a list if you like. Why should we bother? Why is it important to respect autistic people's differences? Okay. Are we ready to discuss some of those ideas? Did anyone manage to write any down? And again, if you don't want to disclose, that's fine, because I can go into my answers. But it would be nice if somebody would like to. I'll just give you some time to think about that. Would anyone like to offer any answers? Okay. So I'm going to to go through a list of some of mine. So I'm going to need the next slide now, Mark. Thank you.
There's just something popped up in the chat. I'm just going to check.
Thank you, Mark.
So so that everyone is entitled to their opinions, no matter of their needs, their neurodiverse needs.
Exactly. That's a wonderful comment, because we need to respect everyone's opinion. Everyone's opinion is valid, even in critical analysis. Yes. Okay.
There's some more coming through.
Great.
Because doing that doesn't make anything any worse for anyone else. So if it doesn't have a negative impact on anyone else.
Love that point.
And a phrase that says we're all the same, just different.
Exactly. Yeah.
One more. And because it's hard and tiring for autistic people to mask all the time. So if that discussions, and so that everyone can exist authentically.
Yes, and I really relate to that. It's exhausting. Okay. Next slide, please, Mark. Thank you for those comments. Wonderful, wonderful. Made for a good discussion. Okay, so it's important to respect autistic people and their differences. Legislation protects autistic people from being immorally disrespected. You know, we have to consider the legislation. Disrespect creates barriers and divisions in society. Disrespecting others shuts down healthy two-way discussions. And disrespecting others can negatively impact on your own professional reputation as coaches or trainers yourselves. Disrespect can negatively impact someone's mental health, which is very important for the MOE Foundation, and cause individual hurt, frustration, or anxiety. Disrespect can affect someone's sense of well-being. Some autistic people experience sensory differences, like physical pain when looking directly into another person's eye. So is it fair or respectful for, let's say, a teacher to tell a child, look at me when I'm talking to you? Autistic people can feel overloaded. So it's not really respectful to tell them to stop overthinking, as I often get in my health appointments. It's not respectful to tell an autistic person with sensory differences to stop being so sensitive. I once had a trainer put a hand up to her screen to stop me talking and stated that I was taking too long to answer and that we would run out of time. This disrespected and unfairly penalised me from giving my point of view in a more detailed communication style. And we'll return to this example again in section 3, in the orange section. Now, this world, our country, our societal and communal environments are not designed for autistic people. There is an urgent need to better respect, plan and adjust our practices to better acknowledge the autistic person's struggle. Temple Grandin, author and autistic professor, says different, not less, which ties in with what somebody just said in chat. So the language we use, including non-verbal language, can negatively or positively impact people's feelings, respectfully or disrespectfully. And therefore, we should always carefully consider how we say things. An old boss was confusing me with their whimsical sentences. I misunderstood their command. Stop doing everything jot and title, they said. So I asked for clarification, and then they proceeded to scold me for taking things too literally. Stop taking things too literally, Rhian. Now, the boss thought that their metaphoric style of conversing took precedence over my need for literal interpretation. Is that fair? Is that arrogance? Terms like pull your socks up is associated with laziness. Why? It relates to clothing. Next slide, please, Mark. So here's another activity. Can you think of any more idioms that might be confusing for an autistic person to interpret? Any idioms? I've got a few written down, but I'd love to hear yours. And again, chat is fine. Could you keep an eye on this, Mark, for me?
Yeah, I will do. I'll let you know as they come through.
Thank you. I'll just keep us rolling. So, a rolling stone gathers no moss. I never got that one. Never. I remember as a child, my father used to say something about a bird in a hand gathers no moss. I don't think idioms made sense to him as well. Yeah. Any others?
Nothing just yet, but I think there might be some typing. So if we want to give it a
okay,
second or two.
Yeah, we will do, because I don't want to give an example that somebody else is actually writing at the moment.
A starter for 10.
A start of a 10. I don't know what that means. It's a good example. Thank you. Raining cats and dogs. Roll your sleeves up. Why is someone telling me to roll my sleeves up when my arms are bare? I don't understand. As an autistic person, it doesn't mean to say that every autistic person doesn't understand, but I struggle here. It's a piece of cake. Bites knuckles. I mean, I love cake, but what's cake got to do with doing things easily? Any more in the chat?
There's a few more come in. Let's get our ducks in a row. It's the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
Flying off the handle.
Yeah.
Burning platform. Not like that. Peel the onion. My old boss used to say, let's peel the orange. To this date, I have no idea what he meant. And someone saying, this is the most relatable webinar I have ever joined. I feel so seen.
Yay! Excellent. Okay, that's what we want. We want you seen and heard. Okay, so we'll move on from the idioms. That was a good little exercise. Mark, next slide, please. Now, oh, no, not quite that one, I don't think. Is that what's coming up next for you?
It is, yes.
Okay. Okay, yes it is, that's fine. Okay, right, I can make this work. So, staying with language preferences, a participant of mine said in a group discussion, I can't understand why all the people with autism are so obsessed with dinosaurs and trains. Ha 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 ha. Now this sentence, it's unethical on so many levels because A, it brands all autistic people as living in one box, which doesn't take individuality into consideration. Secondly, it catastrophizes autistic people as being obsessional. Now, if tables were turned, would it be fair to brand all men as obsessed with football or all girls as obsessed with dolls? No, because that's stereotyping and it is discriminatory. And C, it mocks and belittles the autistic person's needs to have intense interests, as though there is something wrong or funny with being an expert on a topic. Non-autistic people are also dedicated to intense interests like horse riding and tennis. So personally, I prefer the term expert. I don't like being labelled as obsessed. Next slide, please, Mark. So section 3, what is the legislative protection for underrepresented groups in the UK? What does the law say about all of this? Next slide, please. So the Equality Act 2010 is the main document. It legally protects disabled people from discrimination in areas like employment and education. In order for autistic people to access services with the same ease as non-autistic people, the Act advises employers and organisations to make reasonable adjustments for them, as the More Foundation are doing for me today, allowing me to train from my notes. Officially, autistic people are considered disabled in the UK, though some autistic people do not relate to this label at all, and that's their prerogative. Next comes the Autism Act, which actually was the first piece of UK law to specifically address the needs of autistic people. And then we have a surprise, the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. Now, when organisations don't take their obligations seriously, the environment can become unsafe. The Health and Safety Act protects people's well-being in organisations. Discrimination creates social exclusion, economic hardship, bullying, and reduced access to essential services, community, and a happy life. And a failure to provide reasonable adjustments means that some autistic people may not thrive alongside their mainstream counterparts, and it is therefore not equitable or fair to ignore anyone's well-being within your organisation. Next slide, please, Mark. Now, I'm a visual learner and I love how simple and effective this diagram explains things. So on the left, we have equality. Everyone gets an opportunity in their environment to go and see the view. We've got 3 people here, and they've all had the opportunity to go and see the view. But on the right, we have equity or fairness. Because some people, the child in this case, needs a box to lift them up because the wall creates a barrier to their ability to see the view fairly. So to recap, in order for everyone to thrive within equality, some people need adjustments made to support them fairly. However, autistic people are still often not granted these reasonable adjustments in the UK today. The hand-up incident we talked about earlier happened to me because the trainer had not planned reasonable adjustments, like extra time, for me to answer in my more detailed way and in my autistic communication style. So autistic people's different communication styles were ignored that day. Everyone was given an equal opportunity to attend the training event, but not everyone was given an equitable opportunity to thrive at that event. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Great, okay. Anybody want to say something there? Okay, next slide, Mark. So we move on to section 4, we're doing well. And we ask, what are the 2 main challenges autistic people experience in mainstream society? Next slide. They are sensory processing and social communication. Next slide, please. And tonight we are going to discuss just one of these, and we're going to pick the social communication. And in particular, we are going to address misconceptions and unconscious biases. Now, there are many misconceptions made about autistic people, which are harmful to some autistic people's well-being. You know, society can generally put pressure on everyone to be the same, so to say, which can stigmatise people. Like, all Welsh people love rugby, which really isn't true. I really don't. Sorry. So assumptions are often formed from unconscious biases. In example, I'm told a lot that I don't look autistic. You don't look autistic. It happened just last week, which proves that non-autistic people have an unconscious bias around how an autistic person should look. So last week I replied and I said, well, how is an autistic person meant to look? And the lady became agitated with me. Well, there's no need to be rude about it, she said. Rude? It's a great question. How is an autistic person meant to look? What's rude about that? So autistic people are often accused of being confrontational and rude for questioning the typical ways of doing things or saying things, as though they should know their place. And this leaves autistic people feeling misunderstood and exhausted. It's exhausting, day in, day out. Calling me rude deflected away from the initial disrespectful statement. You don't look autistic. You don't look like a lady in that short skirt. You don't look like a man. And you don't look ill. Now, at the very least, these are all unsolicited statements. But at worst, they are discriminatory statements. And people's unconscious minds are flawed because they use associations to form social categories that feed their thinking behaviours. And these are often based on appearances or on outdated data. In the coaching business, we understand, right, how destructive unsolicited statements and advice can be. And we might ask permission to say a statement. Next slide, please, Mark. Now, up until my diagnosis in 2019, I was deemed by society as neurotypical or non-autistic. So here I am, pre-diagnosis, 2019, the non-autistic Rhian. But of course, here I am also, post-diagnosis, the autistic Rhian. And of course I look identical, because I am me. Regardless of how others make false assumptions about me, I'm still me. I'm an individual. Autistic people need allyship. Now there's that word again. So to recap, when there is a breakdown or disrespect in communication, two parties are responsible for that. Not one autistic person who gets labelled as rude or having communication difficulties. Now in section 5, we ask the final question. How can we implement reasonable adjustments for autistic people within our practices? Well, we can do this by respecting a person's individuality. It's a good place to start. And please, if you take anything from this training, take that. If someone doesn't want to look you in the eye, or if someone asks you to turn down the volume, if someone doesn't want to go up to the bar, or asks for clarification around your whimsical way of speaking, or if someone asks you to write down their answer to your question, please just sit in that space with them and understand that it could be a coping strategy or an individual communication style that differs from yours. Different, not less. And we mustn't forget as well that no one has to disclose their autism if they don't want to, but reasonable adjustments to a diverse audience still need to be made. Next slide, please, Mark. Now, here's a few examples of how you can make impactful, reasonable adjustments. Some autistic people need extra processing time. That's one reasonable adjustment that we can make. Tonight I scheduled 5 minutes of, you could call it blank time, so that I didn't feel pressure to rush and hopefully give time for some questions at the end. Some autistic people use visual aids. So what's in front of you here? Shall we meet in the coffee shop or at my studio? Is an example. Now, I personally would understand this sentence if it was put or drawn in front of me in its visual form. Coffee, shop, or studio. And this is particularly helpful for non-verbal people, coaches, or participants in your training events. So you may want to include visuals, lots of visuals in your presentations. So we all have a duty to provide more inclusive practices, from changing our attitudes to planning supportive frameworks for inclusion, education, or empowering people. Considering autistic people's sensory, communication, and interaction differences, what adjustments can you make to support autistic people to thrive? So I'm going to ask you that question now. And again, I'd love some of you to interact with us, and you can do that through the chat if you don't want to do that verbally. So, can you think of adjustments that would support your autistic clients to thrive? Now, this could be a good time to look back over your notes. You may have made some notes, and I most certainly have mentioned quite a lot of adjustments throughout the training. But can you think of your own? Any offers? And the trainers are not exempt as well.
So patience, written instructions, space for reflection, and clean language.
Lovely. 4. That's a treat, Mark. Thank you so much. I think the clear language resonates tonight, and I hope that that the participants can see that the slides are portrayed clearly with clear language, but also I've eliminated any kind of flashing images or any animated images coming in and out, so that we cater for everybody. Yeah. Any more? I think chat.
We've got allowing time for different communication styles.
Yes, and processing time. Absolutely. Well done. Yeah.
Giving time to digest information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm saying the neurodiverse students I work with often like me to put the bright office lights off and also to have things to do in their hands at the same time as we're interacting.
Yeah, dimmed lighting, absolutely. Well done.
Using visuals, extra processing time, awareness of language used, and being careful with metaphors, idioms versus literal language.
Exactly, that being respectful of language, yes. Yeah.
That's everything that's come through so far.
Okay, great. So we'll go on to the next slide. Thank you, Mark. So I'll reel off a few myself just to see if you resonate with any of those. You could ask your coachee what adjustments they need. And then after asking, you could offer different ways to receive that answer. So for example, you could accept written answers as opposed to verbal, like we've done tonight, writing in chat. You could offer one-to-one as well as group work in the same room when you're training. Or you could create certainty in familiar groups that don't change often. So for example, you could tell someone you're in group 1 for the next 20 minutes, then you're in group 4, then you're in group 7, or and after dinner you're in group 10. And this might not be the best strategy. That's an example of kind of how not to do it. So familiarity. You could create sensory breaks, and you could consider the practical venue or environment, as someone has already said in chat, dimmed lighting, noise reducing headphones, and an interesting one is avoid wearing perfume if you're having a session with a coachee, maybe as a life coach. Okay. You could ask if you're actually ask yourself if you're actually making assumptions, and challenge yourselves to come up with that answer. Next slide, please, Mark. So, this is just the beginning. It's been a taster session. And, we are aware we've worked through just that introduction to acknowledging diversity in our practices tonight. Now, if you want to join me for my full in-depth training, which builds on the knowledge around reasonable adjustments, you'll find that I use my original designed PAL framework, PAL. You can book me for that as a one-to-one session or club together for group training to build confidence, competence, and create an inclusive neuro-affirmative practice at your organisation or at your life coaching practice. And you can please email me for more details at rhianhopkins@gmail.com. Next slide, please. So just before we close, I mentioned at the start that you can use the MOE feedback sheet, which I highly recommend we do. But if anybody is willing, I'd love some feedback myself through email. And all I want you to do is to answer this one question. So how has this course raised your awareness around your obligations to support autistic people this evening? And that's the end of the training. Do we have any questions before we draw to a close?
While people are pondering that, I just share a comment that came in the chat, Rhian, which was,
thank you.
I like the idea that if we design training for neurodiverse learners, then everyone gets to benefit from that. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Including making reasonable adjustments for the trainer. You could say that I've exaggerated slightly the fact that I'm reading the notes, because it just goes to show that we can kind of normalize reasonable adjustments into everyone's practice, and that they are allowed. So you could imagine getting up and doing a talk, and someone, I've had it happen to me, could easily say, "Oh, you're not allowed your notes." Okay. Yeah. Any more comments?
So there's a question about how best to support a sensory or autistic overload during a virtual coaching training.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So please send me that and I will answer you in more detail. But for now, what I would personally suggest is that, do you remember earlier on in the training I said, please hold a space. So often human beings, when they see distress, they just want to fix it. So I think if we come away from that mindset and think, rather than fix it, we just need to be a supportive mechanism for the person who's experiencing the distress. So that's one thing to do. hold the space instead of trying to do something to fix it. Just be present in the space when someone is having a meltdown or a shutdown. But the other important factor here is to remember that some autistic people, like frameworks, or they like to plan in advance. So avoidance of a meltdown can be achieved if we plan to look at the environment, to diffuse any overwhelm, whether it's noise or smells or flashing lights. If we plan to support an autistic person not to have to be in that environment, we are actually reducing the chances of a meltdown or a shutdown happening. So that's another thing. Plan, plan, plan. And another one for me would be to communicate well, using the autistic person's chosen or preference, preferred way of communicating. So, look at me when I'm talking to you is not going to diffuse a meltdown or a shutdown if an autistic person doesn't like to look at somebody, or just doesn't look at somebody, or it's painful to look at somebody. So we don't want to aggravate the situation by saying, look at me. We want to diffuse. Does that answer it? But I can give more detail if you send me the question in email. Have we got time for any more?
We do. If there are more, there's a lot of the messages coming through are just are thanks and validation.
Oh, that's nice to know as well. Did you enjoy?
Some people have had to drop off, but there's thank you. That was really helpful to hear about your experiences. Thank you for such an informative and engaging session. And then someone who wants me to try and pronounce the Welsh word, so I think they're just having trying to shame me. Just thank you, Rhian, for your valuable insight. And do you say diolch?
Diolch, yes. Diolch yn fawr.
I did it okay then.
You did it great. Yes. Yeah, wonderful. Yes.
Thank you for the session. Really appreciated the delivery, Rhian. And then sorry, I've got to go. And yes, that was the end.
Okay.
Lots of thanks and validation for you. No more questions at the moment, but maybe they'll come to you. Okay, so nothing in chat. So just one last chance to ask me a question in person here. No obligation, just giving you that opportunity just in case somebody would like to. Okay, I think we're done. I mean, people might be typing, but I suppose whilst they are, I just want to thank you and celebrate you for being here, for doing this for Mo. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear you speak, and insightful and valuable, as so many people have said. So it's greatly appreciated. Lots of hand clapping emojis coming up, and so I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sure I can speak for everyone to say I've enjoyed it, and really appreciate you giving your time this evening. So thank you. Oh, my very pleasure, and thank you for your help and for Jane's help, but also to the participants for turning up and showing an interest. I hope everyone has taken something away from tonight's session, and as I said, it's just the beginning. This is a huge area that deserves our attention. So thank you so much for turning up and for contributing. I can't wait to go and read all the chat later, and I would love to receive your emails. I really like that personal interaction. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to the MOE Foundation. It's a wonderful organisation, and it trained me. I always know I'm in good hands with the MOE Foundation, and Mark especially was one of my trainers when I
became a MOE graduate, I suppose. So please do join up with MOE, and honestly, they'll blow your brains. There's an idiom for you there.
Yeah.